In October, a UK court ruled that Apple owes 36 million people money, £1.5 billion. This week, the same court opened a trial against Sony, £2 billion, 12 million people. And who next in line? Steam, £656 million, 14 million people. So 3 platforms, 3 lawsuits, and one number at the center of all of them. 30%. The fee every major platform charges, the fee you pay every time you buy a game, an app or subscription, the fee that has been treated as a natural law for 40 years. And right now in London, that fee is not just being questioned, it's being judged as a system.
This is not a story about one company getting sued. This is a story about a number so embedded in digital commerce that no one asked where it came from. Apple charges 30%. Google also charges 30%. Sony, Valve, Nintendo, Microsoft. The same fee, the same number. Copied across every platform for 2 decades. No one questioned it. Now, UK courts are.
And here is the question that will carry us through this whole film. When every major platform charges the same fee, when that fee has been industry standard for 4 decades, why are courts suddenly calling it illegal? And if they succeed, what happens to every digital storefront on our planet?
To understand why the system is cracking now, we need to trace the number back to its origin, because 30% did not begin with app stores, it did not begin with the internet. It began in 1984 with plastic cartridges and a decision made in Kyoto. Nintendo had just launched the Famicom. Outside developers wanted in. Namco and Hudson Soft, for example. Nintendo could have refused, but instead it opened the door and named a price: 30%. A rule born in a world of factories and freight. A rule that would outlive both. In 1984, the fee made sense. A cartridge was a physical object. Plastic housing, circuit boards, ROM chips, labels, boxes, manuals, all of it manufactured, loaded onto trucks, shipped to warehouses, stocked on shelves. If the game flopped, Nintendo ate the loss. 30% paid for real infrastructure. Factories, inventory, and risk. The fee was the cost of making copies exist in the physical world.
Then software replaced freight, and the fee stayed exactly where it was.
July 10, 2008. Apple launches the App Store. 500 applications on day 1, and in the developer agreement, the same number. 30%. Steve Jobs told the Wall Street Journal that August, quote, "We do not expect this to be a big profit generator." He was catastrophically wrong. By 2023, the App Store generated roughly $85 billion in gross revenue annually. Apple's 30% slice became one of the most profitable lines in corporate history. A rounding error in Jobs' imagination became tens of billions in pure margin.
But here's what changed. In 1984, making one more copy of a game cost dollars. Plastic, chips, shipping. In 2008, making one more copy of an app cost fractions of a penny. Server cycles, bandwidth, and bits moving at the speed of light. The infrastructure vanished, the toll stayed the same.
This is the system that every platform inherited. Apple carried the fee from cartridges into software, while Sony carried it into console downloads. At the same time, Valve carried it into PC storefronts. A logic designed for manufacturing hardened into a platform rule. And no one questioned the number because everyone charged the same. Consensus became inertia. Inertia became invisible. That is how a cost becomes a norm, and a norm becomes invisible. And the consequences are measurable. A UK consumer group compared prices across the market. Digital games on the PlayStation Store were on average 20% more expensive than physical copies of the same titles. Think about what digital distribution removes. No disc, no case, no manual, no warehouse, no truck, no retailer. The marginal cost approaches zero. Yet the price stays the same, sometimes higher. In Australia, a new release might cost $125 on the PlayStation Store. The same game on a shelf, $99. The difference is not explained by technology, it is explained by who controls the door.
And this is where you come in.
If you owned a PlayStation in the United Kingdom between August 2016 and February 2026 and you bought a single digital game or made a single in-game purchase, you are in a lawsuit right now. Whether you know it or not, The case operates on an opt-out basis. You do not sign up, you do not file a form. The legal system assumes you were harmed. If Sony loses, each affected user receives an average of £162. Multiply that by 12.2 million people and you reach the headline figure, £2 billion. The woman leading the case is Neill, nearly 2 decades as a consumer rights advocate, former director of policy at Which, the UK's largest consumer organisation, co-founder of Consumer Voice in 2023.
I'm involved in leading a claim against Sony PlayStation.
Her argument is simple. Sony controls the only place to buy digital PlayStation games. There is no competition. And when there is no competitive pressure, price stops reflecting cost. It starts reflecting power. 12 million people paid the difference.
But Sony is not the first to face this argument. Apple already lost.
October 23, 2025. The UK Competition Appeal Tribunal ruled unanimously against Apple
that the tech giant abused its market dominance through its App Store.
The case was brought by Dr. Rachel Kent on behalf of 36 million iPhone and iPad users. The theory was identical. Apple controlled the App Store. The App Store was the only door. With no alternative, Apple charged what it wanted. The fee was an abuse of dominance. The tribunal agreed. Damages, £1.5 billion. Dr. Kent released a statement. Quote, "Today's ruling sends a clear message. No company, however wealthy or powerful, is above the law." Apple is appealing, but the ruling stands as precedent. And the precedent now sits inside the Sony courtroom like a loaded weapon. The same legal theory, the same statute, the same type of claim. If Apple was found to have breached competition law, the path to the same finding against Sony just became shorter. The system was no longer just criticized, it was now precedented. And there is a third case waiting, Valve Corporation, Steam, the dominant platform for PC gaming worldwide. The claim, £656 million. The claimants, 14 million UK users. The accusation, the same 30% fee passed to consumers through higher prices. In January 2026, the tribunal certified the case. Valve's motion to dismiss failed. Trial dates are pending.
3 platforms, 3 lawsuits. Apple fell first. Sony is in trial now. Valve is next. This is not coincidence. This is coordination.
The same law firm, Milberg London, represents both the Sony and Valve claimants. The same legal playbook underlies all 3 cases. The same statute, Section 47B of the Competition Act 1998, enables the opt-out mechanism. The UK has become the testing ground for a legal assault on the fundamental economics of digital platforms. And the target is not Apple, not Sony, not Valve. The target is the number they all share. So why now? Why, after 4 decades, is the 30% fee suddenly under attack? 3 things converged. First, distribution costs collapsed. Bandwidth, hosting, and payment processing all fell to a fraction of what they were. The gap between what platforms charge and what delivery actually costs became impossible to ignore. Second, opt-out collective actions became viable. UK law now allows millions of consumers to be represented without filing individual claims. Mass litigation became logistically possible. Third, Apple lost. And once Apple lost, the fee stopped looking inevitable. It started looking exposed. Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic Games, has been calculating the exposure for years. In court documents from the Wolfire antitrust case against Valve, his private emails were revealed. In November 2018, Sweeney wrote to Gabe Newell, Valve's co-founder, quote, "Right now, you assholes are telling the world that the strong and powerful get special terms, while 30% is for the little people." Valve's chief operating officer forwarded the email internally. His response was in 3 words. "You mad, bro?" Sweeney was not guessing. He had calculated the real cost of digital distribution, bandwidth, payment processing, customer support, server infrastructure, under 7% of gross revenue, total. That leaves 23%, not paying for factories, not paying for trucks, not paying for inventory risk, not funding innovation, paying for control, paying for the privilege of passing through the only door.
And now I want you to picture something. The last game you bought digitally. You tap purchase, you see the price, £60. And now understand where the money goes. Roughly £18 doesn't go to the studio that spent 4 years building the game. It doesn't go to the artists who drew the characters. It doesn't go to the engineers who debugged the code at midnight. It goes to the company that hosted download button. And you paid that margin, not the developer, you.
Sony's defense is predictable. First, security, allowing third-party stores would open PlayStation to malware, hacking and data breaches. The closed system protects users. Second, hardware economics. Sony sells consoles at thin margins, sometimes at a loss. The 30% fee subsidizes hardware, making consoles affordable for families. Third, industry standard. Everyone charges 30%. The fee is normal.
Apple made the same arguments. The tribunal rejected every one of them.
And this is the structural trap that platforms now face. If the fee is justified because everyone charges it, then everyone is equally exposed. The defense that protects Sony implicates Valve. The defense that protected Apple just collapsed in court. The consensus that held for 40 years is now the vulnerability. For 40 years, the fee looked untouchable. Now it looks litigable. The implications extend far beyond the UK. If these cases succeed, the 30% standard faces pressure across every digital platform on Earth. The European Union is already moving. The Digital Markets Act designated Apple, Google, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, and ByteDance as gatekeepers. These companies must allow alternative app stores, they must allow third-party payments, they must stop forcing developers into exclusive distribution. Apple was the first company formally charged under the DMA, June 24, 2024. The accusation: App Store policies violated the regulation.
Apple as gatekeeper.
16 months later, a UK court ruled those same policies unlawful. Brussels and London are converging.
This is not about gaming. This is about what happens when digital platforms become so dominant that consumers have no alternative.
For decades, platforms positioned themselves as neutral infrastructure. Pipes, marketplaces, just the place where transactions happen. But when a platform controls the only door and charges a fee to pass through that door and prohibits competing doors from existing, it stops being infrastructure. It becomes a toll collector, and toll collectors have been regulated since the Roman Empire built roads. The numbers are staggering when you add them up. £1.5 billion in the Apple ruling, £2 billion sought in the Sony case, £656 million in the Valve litigation. If all three succeed, UK courts will have extracted over £4 billion from the platform economy. And that is just the beginning. Google Play faces a £1 billion claim. The trial is going to happen in October 2026. Some platforms are already adapting before courts force their hand. Epic charges 12%. Microsoft has signaled willingness to allow Steam onto future Xbox consoles. Apple reduced its fee to 15% for small developers in 2020. Though critics noted this was a response to legal pressure, not generosity. The old model is cracking. The question is what replaces it when the cracks become breaks.
The 30% tax is under attack. The platforms built empires on it, and now those empires are defending themselves in courtrooms, where the question is not whether they are profitable, but whether the mechanisms that made them profitable were ever legal.
There is something almost poetic in the arc. A fee that began with plastic cartridges in Japanese factories is now being contested over weightless bits moving through fiber optic cables. The physical infrastructure that justified the toll no longer exists. But the toll booths remain. For 40 years, consumers accepted platform fees as the price of access. Developers accepted them as the cost of distribution. Everyone assumed the number was too foundational to change. Now that assumption is being tested in courtrooms. And regardless of the verdicts, the conversation has already shifted. 30% is no longer invisible. It is a number on trial.
The trial runs for 10 weeks, and by the summer we will know whether Sony joins Apple in liability or whether the platforms find a legal foothold to defend the systems they inherited. But something has already changed. For 40 years the fee was invisible. Then it became visible. Now it's vulnerable. The number everyone copied, the toll no one questioned, the architecture of extraction exposed. You're watching Dr. Claus, where we investigate the hidden systems that shape digital life. If you want to understand what happens next, you know where to find this channel. Thank you and have a good one.